Good morning. I will now call this meeting of the Alabama Commission of Higher Education to order. For starters, I'd like to ask Commissioner Price to lead us in prayer.
Good morning. Thank you, Lord, for these and our many blessings. Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner Price. Will everyone stand at this time so we can recite the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we are able to hear our presenters. For those of y'all that are on Zoom, if you would just click your mute button from this point forward. So we just want to have any clutter in the background. And of course, if you want to speak, by all means, unmute and we'll go from there. At this time, Dr. Purcell, please call the roll.
Yes, Charles Bunton,
Here.
Miranda Bolden Frost, Ann Sermon. And Ann is online. Norman Crow. Here. Jody Singleton. Here. Timothy Guyan.
Here.
Paul Kennedy. Here. Amy Price.
Here.
Larry Turner.
Here.
Larry's online. Stan Pilot. Here. Stan Nelson. Here. Rod Scott. Here. And we have a quorum, sir.
Excellent, thank you. Everyone should have had time to review the agenda. The chair entertains a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, like sign. Agenda is approved. Okay, everyone should have had time to review the minutes, or are there any additions or corrections to the minutes as presented? Chair entertains a motion to approve the minutes of the September 10th, 2021 meeting. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Minutes are approved. Now we come to the chairman's report. I'll be pretty brief, but first of all, I just want to say how nice it is to see everybody's smiling faces here in person. Commissioner Pilot and I were just talking, and the last time we got together in person was March of 2020. And I remember specifically because Commissioner Pilot and I we went for a fist bump. They said, no, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to go for the elbow. So we went for the elbow because we didn't know what we were dealing with at that time. And it's just amazing. But almost 2 years by Zoom meetings. But so good to have everybody in here. I appreciate all the commissioners. If you were here last March, there's some new smiling faces up here and some veterans up here as well. But I can't thank all the commissioners for being here, for traveling all over our great state to be here. Also want to welcome any guests that we have out here. I know we have Dr. Way, thank you for being here. Any other presidents of the universities or organizations, well, thank everybody for being here. Also, if you weren't aware, we had our first open budget meetings the 1st of November. They were actually November 9th and 10th and went very, very well. In the past, we just got recommendations from the schools, and that's kind of how the process went. But this year we had them live. It was a great process. Commissioner Nelson chaired that. I just wanted him to give his thoughts on it. He did an excellent job.
Well, yeah, I agree totally. It was just so much fun to hear the presentations, to know what everybody is dealing with. Of course, everybody has many, many different unique positions that they have to deal with, but everybody has common issues also, and those common issues would be how to deal with inflation, how to attract and keep personnel. And later on, when we talk about this, Dr. Jim Hood is going to talk more about that. But it was just a great day, actually a great 2 days, and that will be definitely a permanent part of our process.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Nelson. Again, they did a great job. I actually went to the meetings. I'm not part of that committee, but they were nice enough to allow me in the door to sit down and be part of that process, which was, I felt very productive. So that concludes my report. Now I'll turn it over to Dr. Purcell for the Executive Director's report.
Yes, and it'll be brief compared to some of my longer treatises that I've done here, but I just sort of want to highlight a couple activities that we will have in our budget that are new to the campuses. One of them is the FAFSA completion project. We ended up with 1.1 million in years COVID funds to help build some software to help K through 12 with their new requirement to have everybody that graduates from high school to have filled out a FAFSA. And so with that particular initiative, part of that we've already done is developed a nice web page for those that are in K through 12, and any of you that are recruiting can use to sort of see where we are in that process. So right now we have almost 25% have filled out the FAFSA already, but remember they have to get to 100% by May. And in the past, usually we would just sort of, as institutions and as higher ed, really not be concerned about the next generation of students until maybe May, June, or whatever. But this way you can sort of see what's going on. And this is sort of the trend. Right now, the last couple of years, we've been about 60%, and then when the pandemic, it went down. And we've got a long way to go if we're going to get close to 100%. Now, the individuals in high school, they can get a waiver from their parents who are conscientious objectors for government intrusion on their financial records. For the FAFSA, also the superintendent of the school district can also do a waiver for individuals that perhaps for other reasons aren't able to have the FAFSA completed in time for graduation. Some nice stuff that I think was really good is you can sort of see which districts are high performing, especially if you have a service area. You can look at all your districts that are your main feeder schools to see whether they need help in having FAFSA events and helping the high schools look for people and work through it. The institutions, may not necessarily get access to the individual names, but the school districts have career coaches and counselors who may know exactly who specifically has either an error on their message that needs help, or the people that haven't filled out FAFSA yet and could be a part of your recruiting. And these are the high schools that have the highest response rate. So if you just want somebody else to do all the work for you and you just want to pick up more students, this is where I would go. I start with the places that have a lot of people already applying. And then you can look at your specific institution. This is Autauga County, which is my home school district. And you can sort of see that Marbury High School, it's got 32%, which leaves leading the pack. So you can actually do a chart that shows how your district is doing compared to the state. And you can also have a competition within that district by showing that Marbury, even though a small school, is #1 for at least another week and a half before others are involved. So that's pretty cool. You know, we had shown this at our last meeting, but this is the other part where we'll actually be doing direct communications to people who have filled out the FAFSA and letting them know that their application is fully complete, what next steps are to look for state aid or other aid sources, and for those that have errors, actually to help them with that error process. And this helps us do the feedback that we get that you just saw a piece of and help the school districts work with those students also. The next one is $2.5 million request for Gear Up Alabama. That's currently run at UAB. They have indicated an interest in really emphasizing the Birmingham region rather than the rural populations, which Gear Up is sort of more targeted to. So they've asked for us to take over the statewide grant that sort of addresses counties that perhaps are not particularly served by particular institutions. And if funded, that'll come into our office, and basically we'll be redirecting some of that funds to campuses in the areas that we're serving. And that'll be fun. They currently serve 9,300 students. The next one is micro-credential fund. A couple of years ago, we had asked for a micro-credential fund from the legislature. We asked for $5 million. In the wisdom of the legislature, they gave the community college system $10 million for short-term certificates, which is great. We also wanted to have the universities involved in this process because there are some micro-credentials that are more appropriate at the university level. So this year, we're asking for just 1 million, but it will be targeted toward the universities. And I believe in the ACCS budget this year, they're asking for additional funds because these short-term credentials become quite popular and really are probably the future of a lot of the stuff we work at, both at the universities and at the community colleges. And I think I'm going to stop right there and hand it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Purcell. Mrs. Margaret Gunter will introduce the presenters for the discussion items.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have two gentlemen who are going to be speaking to us today. They are going to be talking about higher education in Alabama, what it is meant to them as students, and how they're giving back. One is going into the classroom, and the other is dealing with Alabama's economy. So, as you know, there's a teacher shortage across not only the state of Alabama, but across the whole country. In fact, yesterday, Dr. Purcell did a lengthy interview with a reporter talking about where we are, where we're going to be in the future. We've seen about a 40% decline over the last decade in teachers going into teacher education classes. But I want to say that today, we have something to be very proud of. In 2019, the Alabama legislature responded to this teacher shortage problem. They created the Alabama Recruit and Retain Minority Teacher Pilot Program. This established a partnership between Athens State University and Alabama A&M. In 2020, Athens State University launched their Men of Kennis program. This program was intended to support men of color on their path to becoming teachers in Alabama classrooms. Today, we have with us Jacob Orr, who is a member of the first graduating class of Men of Kennis. Jacob has quite a path that led him to this point. He actually was the first person, he told me, in his family to even consider going to college. Jacob became a volunteer coach, and he became a substitute teacher in the classroom, and a principal said, you need to check out this Men of Kennis program. I think it's something you would be interested in. Today, Jacob now holds his college degree, and he will be teaching in Lawrence County, his home county, at the Hatton Elementary School. Today, please welcome teacher Jacob Orr.
Oh, thank you. Good morning. No, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you so much for providing the funding for my scholarship for Men of Kennis. And I wanted to tell the story of how much it helped me and changed my life. Man, it's hard to say that. When I was younger, I grew up in Town Creek Apartments, just me and my mom. And my mom pushed education to me. And so I made all A's through school. And I had this pressure on me to be the first one in my family, change my family's trajectory. It was hard. It was a hard road. My mama, she couldn't give me all the information that I needed to understand how to sign up for college and everything. I made a 25 on my ACT the first time, and I never even took it again. I didn't understand how important it was. I didn't sign up for any scholarships. I didn't understand how to. So after I graduated, I hit almost a dead end. I tried to go to college for my first semester, and then I had to drop out because I didn't have the money. But after that, I hit kind of a dead end road where I was working in a Mexican restaurant, washing dishes for $7.25. I worked from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day. Nobody in there spoke English but me. So I was in the corner washing dishes, and all I had was my thoughts telling me how much of a failure I was, and telling me how this is how my life was going to end. You started in apartments, you're going to end up there. I was ready to give up. But I asked God for one more chance to help me. The next day I went to my friend's house and I told him the struggles I was going through. And he told me that, he said, you love football, you love people, you need to try coaching. And so I went to sign up for coaching, and they said to coach, you have to volunteer sub. I said, okay, I'll do that, no problem. And the first day I got signed up for the sub list, I got a call from a principal at my old elementary school. She said, I've got to leave in PE for 3 months if you can come here. And at this time, I didn't even have a car, but I went anyway. I did my 3 months there. And my first day in PE, I realized that it was more about them than it was about me. You know, I loved the opportunity, but I knew that I was there for a reason. So I asked the students the first day if they had any teachers who told them they weren't smart enough or weren't good enough. And every student in the class raised their hand. And it made me remember as a student in the same school what it was like for me. I made all A's, and the teachers loved me, but they didn't understand I lived in apartments and was so close to the person next door to me. I could hear their moms yelling at them at night. I could hear all the struggles they were going through, and they were like brothers to me. So I would see the students, how they were treated, and it just reminded me of what it was like back then, and I knew I had to change it. So right then we were in PE, but we started working on math every day. And the students went to the principal and told them how much they were learning in PE, and she offered me a part-time job tutoring them. And the students went up, some students doubled their scores on math and reading, and they just told me, you know, how thankful they were. I was just keeping my head down, just hoping that maybe I could go back to college. The principal was telling me that I needed to get into education since I was doing so good. And one day at work, my superintendent tapped me on the shoulder, and he said, there's a scholarship at Athens State for men of color, and I think you would be a perfect candidate for it. When I tell you that the weight was lifted off of me, the financial burden that I had to try to get to college, I didn't know what I was going to do at this point. I didn't even have a car. This scholarship helped me so much. Gave me the foundation to complete my dream of becoming a teacher and helping the students that were just like me. The scholarship has helped me so much. I was able to get a car and pay for school. And during, you know, with COVID, we had so many online classes and things like that. The support that they gave me, you know, because I'm going into this almost like a baby. You know, I don't really know what I'm doing in college. But, you know, we have a great brotherhood and a great mentor in Dr. Turner White, and they helped me the entire way. And now I've already got my degree, and I'm already teaching back in my community, and I just love it. I really want to share some of the things that happened to me, some of the things my students have said that I got to do, because, you know, sometimes for people like me, I was almost left out. And now I can look out for them in the ways that, you know, I might have been missed. I had a student one day, the counselor came to me and she said, this student just had DHR come to them and talk to them, and they don't know what to do. And I was able to go to them and say, I've been through that before. I had a student that was actually looking outside in her classroom window and saw her parents get arrested. And I was able to say, I've seen that before. I've been there before. One of my favorite things that happened to me, I was walking through the hallway, one of the kindergartners said, hey, Coach Hoy lives in the apartments where I live. And it meant so much to me because I didn't get to see that when I was younger. I never got to see anybody like me come through it. I didn't know it was possible. I just want to thank you guys and thank Athens State and McKenna for making it possible for me.
Mr. Orr, have you ever gotten a standing ovation before? What a great story. Continue to tell your story. That is just fantastic. Commissioners, anybody have any questions?
I have a
Mr.
quick
Orr?
question. What grade are you teaching?
I'm teaching third grade.
Third grade, okay. And what system are you in?
I'm in Lawrence County, I teach at Academy Elementary.
Okay.
Let the record show that Amy Price was on the school board. Yes, she'll come.
And I'm dialed in.
Well, thank you for having the courage to come and tell your story to this bunch right here. We really appreciate it. We may look scary, but we're not that scary. But thank you so much for being here. Great story.
Mr. Chairman, I think after that, we can call for a motion to adjourn and go home. I mean, you just can't stop that. If you didn't have tears in your eyes and you're not grieving, that was fantastic. We are so appreciative that Jacob came and shared his story. And now we have a GRSP student, Graduate Research Scholars Program. This is part of the S4 program, which increases the research capabilities in the state. This gentleman came to the United States in 2008 to pursue his master's and PhD at Tuskegee University as part of the GRSP. Dr. Sheikh Zanuddin is going to be talking to us today about GRSP and its impact on his Alabama career story. So Dr. Zanuddin, if you would come forward, please.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I came as a GRSP scholar, but now I'm standing in front of you as a GRSP representative. I came to do my PhD in 2008, and at the time, my professor told me that we have this Explore program and we would like to work under this, and I said that this is excellent foundation for me. So the GRSP scholarship not only provided me the support that I needed being coming from a foreign country, but also helped me lay my foundation, research foundation in a modern technology areas. So I started my career. So basically the GRSP is my research foundation to start with. The GRSP program, as you know, the Alabama High School GRSP program was established to attract the best and the brightest students in Alabama so that they can work in explore modern tech areas and also to provide the support to them. The basic idea of Alabama High School is designed to enhance the research capabilities of Alabama so that more money can be brought into Alabama, as well as more industries and new research areas can be established. So what I'm going to share today is that since I was a scholar to a representative, how I contributed towards these efforts. So I know that I don't know that I'm the best and the brightest. I let you guys decide that, but I did my small contribution towards this effort. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Could you please go to the next slide? To date, this is my career ladder. I started in 2011 as a research assistant professor at Tuskegee University. And from now to then, it's about 10 years. I have brought about $23 million as a PI and co-PI to the state of Alabama, out of which I have brought $3.6 million as a PI. Besides that, I've been very successful in publishing book chapters. I published 73 peer review articles. And more importantly, I consider the proud of myself is that I have mentored more than 150 minority students all over from Alabama and neighboring states. Besides that, I'm serving in several areas. I'm the director of 3 leading programs at Tuskegee University that focus on attracting minority students. I'm also the graduate council member at Tuskegee University. We decide about the curriculum, we make changes how to help the students. I'm also now the current GRSP campus coordinator of Tuskegee University. I also serve in Red Team member, helping faculties to write the proposals and decide what are the good areas and bad areas in the proposal. Besides that, I'm also the graduate student chair and committee member.
and so many other things I'm doing at Tuskegee University. Pretty good. Next slide. Not only in Alabama, but I'm also helping the scientific community. I'm also a scientific committee member, associate editor, reviewer of NSF proposals, and so many other things that I'm doing. So in about 10 years, the GRSP has helped me with the research. So I continued that research, and based on that research, the Tuskegee University offered me the position, saying that, okay, you have done very well, because by the time I completed my PhD, I already published like 7 or 8 papers. So they said that why don't like to join us and continue to work on this explore areas. So I decided to stay there and continue to work on those areas. And in 10 years, you can see that I have been selected for my teaching research excellence services as the best faculty achievement award at Tuskegee University. And I'm the youngest one to get that in the history of Tuskegee University in just only 10 years. So you can see that how much the GRSP has helped me, because when you have the support from this program, the stipend you get, the tuition, it let me focus on my research. And that's why I was able to do very well in my career. Not only the Faculty Achievement Award, I have won the Teaching and the Research Excellence Award also in the College of Engineering. We are also selected as a modern technology leader for the upcoming BEA conference in February 2022 that will be given in Washington, D.C. So all these things that I have achieved so far is primarily because of the first support I got when I came to this country, and that is through the GRSP program. So the Graduate Research Scholars Program is not only helped me, but to date, I know that up to December 2021, the GRSP program has produced 221 PhDs and 77 master's degrees so far has been given under this program. So I'm going to talk about some of the programs, when I was helped and now how I'm helping different schools and students all over Alabama. So this is one of my programs that I run. It's a very successful program where I have mentored about more than 100 students from these colleges, 4-year and community colleges. And you can see I personally go and recruit students, meet with them and bring them and expose them to the modern research areas at Tuskegee University. One of the important things of this one as the Alabama score is that to expose the students to the different industry settings in Alabama so that we can help them get into those industries and decide to stay in Alabama. So one of the important things of this program is that we take them to different industries in Alabama. We let them talk to the people, get internships, work over there for summers, and probably they join those companies. And we have a very successful story about that so many students who came to this program have ended up joining Alabama companies. So good, next slide, please. So these are some of the students of that program who have completed their doctoral degrees as well as the master students. 15 students have joined or completed from Tuskegee University itself. Out of that 100 students, 34 students are completing their PhD programs at the various institutions. So this was one of the programs that I led successfully, and I still continue to do that. Please go to the next slide. This is a new program that we have developed from the support from the NSF. It's a program called Minors in Material Science and Engineering. We have realized that students who get their degrees, bachelor degrees in different areas, are just going through the coursework, but they are not getting any research exposure. So we have developed a program in Minors in Material Science where we bring these students and expose them to the research areas that are EXCO-led and other areas, something like the plasma, composite materials, and all those things. So far in this program, we have graduated about 41 students who received the Minors in Material Science certificate. And currently we have about 13 students in the program. So this all program is led by the NSF grants and supported through the DRSP also. Next one, please. So these are some of the labs and new research areas that I developed. We have developed the Makers Laboratory where we ask all these students from 8 different colleges in Tuskegee University to come and work with us in the research and get exposed to research areas so that we can retain them for higher studies. And once they complete, they can go to the Alabama companies and several other areas like computational mechanics, plasma, biomaterials, and all this. The students get exposed to that. And some of the other programs that we expose our students is NSF Press program, where we work on biomaterials for medical applications and so on and so forth. NSF program, in that program, we are developing multi-functional magnetic materials that can be used for various applications. So students are getting exposed to this one. And the NSF Alabama Explore program that is primarily focused on the plasma technology. And another one we have is the NSF RISE. This is a new grant I got just a few months back. In this program, what we're going to do is that we're going to help the faculty, the new faculty who are joining Tuskegee University to write the proposals, help them how to write the proposals, how to build up their teaching and research abilities so that they can establish themselves in Alabama so that we can retain them, because most of the time we realize that initially when they join Tuskegee University and most of the institutions, they don't have enough support and they decide to leave out or they decide to go out some other places. So we want to retain them, and that's why we have won this grant for about $1 million to assist this faculty. And these are some of the images of our recent graduate students who are supported through the DRSP. You can see Dr. Farooq Syed is working in a SI2 material science company in Auburn, Alabama, that Governor PIV visited a few months back. They are working on developing vials that is used for the COVID vaccines. So they are basically the leading company in that area. So he's working there as a research and director department. Another student who was supported through the GRSP now is a Dr. Vincent Hemrick. He's also working in the R&D department in Evonik. They work primarily on the biomaterials, so he's also contributing to the Alabama economy. And now we recruited a student who completed his PhD and joined Tuskegee University as a postdoc. So he will also be helping us. And below are the current GRSP students who are supported this year. All of them are doing PhDs. One of them just became a candidate, and all of them have an interest to work in Alabama. For example, Richard Harry, the second one over there, he already have a side business. He's working on car batteries. He wants to establish a company in Alabama besides teaching at Alabama institution. So this is something that we have been able to do all these things to in a very small way to help the Alabama economy. And I would like to basically acknowledge the Alabama Commission on Higher Education for supporting this effort. The graduate research scholarship program, which has helped not only me, but you can see 200 PhDs is not something that can be ignored. The National Science Foundation and everybody who is directly or indirectly involved with all these efforts. And I would like to request the commission to see if there is any way that this the support for these students can be increased so that we can help more students get into this program and do wonders at Alabama. Thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you.
I do have a question about intellectual property. You're not a rocket scientist, but you're probably do more than that. How does that work in Alabama? So like a professor actually invents something, does the university share with that revenue? How does that work?
Well, the university, once we have something that can be patented, the university will take the lead on that. They keep the major control of that, but they give some proportion of it to the faculty. But all the authority will be with the university. So that's how it works.
And is that just sort of defined in faculty handbook or something, is it? Or
Well, it is defined in the faculty handbook, and we also have a lawyer at the university who basically writes up all the documentation, and then university as well as the person who implemented signs on it and everything.
Okay, thank you, I was always curious.
Any other questions? Representative Newton, thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, this time we're going to move into discussion items. I'm sorry, decision items. Each commissioners, just so you know, each decision item will be voted on individually. Any questions may be directed to the staff presenter. And I do encourage you to ask any questions, especially for new commissioners. You know, this is your time. If you have any questions, don't understand anything, need clarification, please just present your question to the staff presenter. So our first decision item A will be presented by Mrs. Gunter, the annual report, Alabama Commission on Higher Education 2020 to 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You all should have a copy of the annual report at your seat. Let's look what's new from a year ago. Well, let's start off with the legislature. Record high funding for education, public education in the state of Alabama, $7.7 billion. And that is in the midst of a worldwide pandemic. We had 2 bills passed, you can see on the right. 2 gentlemen, Dr. Purcell and Chairman Button with Governor Ivey signing those bills for AMSTEP and the Police Officer and Firefighter Survival Educational Assistance Program. 3 commissioners were confirmed, and we did have some new additions to our website, the Alabama Credential Registry. Not only will the workplace be needing degree holders, but credit and non-credit credentials will also play an important role in developing Alabama's economy and moving it forward. Credential training is being offered by businesses, industries, trade groups, and the state's colleges and universities. This past year, 8 staff helped register over 1,300 credentials to the National Registry Credential Finder database. Over the next few months, the information in the registry will be used to identify which credentials most closely align with the state's workforce and economic development needs. Complete College America is an alliance, a national alliance that we joined in 2018. The pandemic threw a kink in the work that was being done, but we reconvened this summer. We now have a link on the AIC website that serves as a resource for institutions about CCA material and networking opportunities. 2 years ago, legislation was passed requiring public colleges and universities to develop and enforce a policy on free expression on their campuses. As part of that legislation, they were to send to AIC an annual compliance report. Those are now posted on the AIC website. Are you ready for college? There is a QR link now that we have placed on the poster and sent it around the state to let people know what AIC does have as far as helping them prepare for their college experience. And speaking of college, during the past year, you passed 53 new academic programs. That was up 20% from the previous year. The greatest number of those new programs came at the bachelor's level, with the majority overall in health professions and clinical sciences. And the Doctoral Scholars Program, which is an arm of SRED, it was instituted in 1993 to increase minority presence in faculty positions in higher ed. We now have 149 graduates in that program, and 80% of those are working in higher education. And now on to the state plan. The Code of Alabama charges the Commission with long-range planning to establish statewide objectives and priorities with methods and guidelines for achieving them. The Alabama statewide student database now has over 13 million student records. From those records, numerous reports are produced Much of that data has been used to develop the state plan. We will look at the first priority, which is improving access. College readiness really has two components, the academic preparation and the financial means to get there. A number of high school graduates, the number have come out of our public high schools. You can see from the chart, it stayed over 50,000. We're looking at a 3-year period here. It climbed from 2018 to 2019. It took a small dip in 2020. The good news is the upward trend in those academically prepared to go to college. It went from 74.6% in 2018 to 78.7% in 2020. And the legislature has responded favorably to our increased request for student aid. Need-based aid programs, in fact, have grown from just over 4 million in 2019 to almost 6 million in 2021. We've seen about 100% increase in need-based aid since 2017. Strategies for struggling students. Over 3 years, we've seen students needing remediation drop from 26% to 21%. And students are taking advantage of taking college courses while they're still enrolled in high school through the dual enrollment program. The increase has occurred at the community college and university levels, with the greatest enrollments at the community colleges. Priority 3, STEM programs. We know that STEM graduates are essential to driving an economy forward. There are some programs already enacted in the state. The Best and Brightest program looks to draw STEM graduates to relocate and to work in Decatur and Marengo County. Retain Alabama, which you heard at the last commissioner meeting, is seeking to get STEM graduates from Alabama schools to stay in the state to work. We have seen it's a very small number of enrollments in the STEM programs, as you can see in the chart on the left. But as the one-armed prognosticator said, on the other hand, those who are going in are graduating. So we are producing STEM graduates in the state. So let's talk about the economy and where we are in the economy. Last year, I talked a little bit about the economic outlook report, the outcomes report that was done with using Department of Labor data that showed where our graduates were and those salaries. Well, now we're looking at Retain Alabama. We've identified those who are not intending to stay in the state, those who do remain in the state or who choose to, and then we've got a large blue area there. Over 43% do not know what they want to do. So those are the ones that we really want to go after and show them what Alabama has and what we can showcase. You know, when we did this survey, the majority of the students said they like the lower cost of living and they like the friendliness of the people and they like the climate. Well, you know, it's great and wonderful to have cheap housing, wear shorts on Thanksgiving, and everybody in Walmart say hello, but that's not much for long-term employment gains and really making this your home. So we need to look at what do we have to really show them. Well, let's take a look. Right in the middle, I want to say that the Southeast is the fastest growing area in the country right now economically, and Alabama is very strategically placed to be a part of that. We've got just under 5 million people, but look at what we have to offer. If you go over and look at the right-hand side, we are home to 780 bioscience companies with an annual economic impact estimated at $7.3 million. If you look from Huntsville, Cummings Research Park, which is the second largest research and technology park in the country, and then go around the circle, Auburn has things, Birmingham has things, and then you look back up at Hudson Alpha Institute for Biotechnology, which is a nationwide leader in research on the human genome. The Port of Mobile is the 9th largest deep water seaport in the United States. 10 years ago, what had we been doing? Well, we've been bringing companies into the state. They documented now about $54 billion has been used to get companies have contributed to that as they have come into the state of Alabama. We're fifth in the US in the concentration of manufacturing employment. And we have expansion of existing businesses, and then we have businesses who have come in and who have made Alabama their home. For instance, in Dothan, FedEx is coming in to put a location there. J.M. Smucker in Birmingham, and all over the state, we are seeing companies come in. So what about organizational effectiveness and efficiency? In your handout or in your booklet, you will see the ETF distribution over a 4-year period. We have done well financially with getting money into the education bracket. But look at some of the other things we're doing. Dr. Purcell talked about the FAFSA completion portal to increase those college going rates. We do want more of our students going into college. Jacob's story was a wonderful success story that we would like to hear more about those. A financial aid study is being planned in conjunction with the Lumina Strategy Labs to improve the cost of college, retain Alabama, and recall Alabama. Once they're here, let's keep them here. Recall Alabama, let's get them back. We want to have the graduates to improve the workforce from those two programs. And then as Commissioner Nelson said, that yes, it was a very successful 2-day meeting. The Finance Committee met with the institutions by Zoom to learn more about what their individual needs are for this year. And in the future, we're glad to be able to have that partnership with those institutions. So, Mr. Chairman, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Excellent. Any questions for Mrs. Gunter? This is a great report. Who do we distribute these to?
Well, they go over, it's also on the web.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do we send a hard copy to?
we do, the governor, the legislature, and individuals, like that. And anybody who want one, it is on the website.
Wonderful. Great. Any other questions? Okay, Chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Annual report is approved. Thank you. Our next decision, item B, will be voted on collectively after Mrs. Veronica Harris, Dr. Jim Hood, and Commissioner Stan Nelson presents their recommendation. Mrs. Harris is first with the executive budget request for fiscal year 2022-2023.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Today, I would like to present to you our FY23 budget request. The Code of Alabama requires each state agency to submit a budget request for the next year. And this request was due on November the 1st and has been submitted. But if there are any changes made by this commission, we will do a budget request revision. Our planning assumption was 5% increase for our planning coordination, and that's basically taking care of retirees. We have quite a bit of people that are retiring, and it's also taking care of costs of increase in postage, UPS, software, subscription, and comptroller charges. AIC is requesting a total of $52,002,632 for FY23. Of this amount, $50,819,643 is coming from state appropriated funds. This represents a 9.5% increase over FY22. Now we have 35 programs and 5 appropriation units, and we're asking for 3 new programs that Dr. Purcell has already spoken. Also, for other assumptions, we're asking for 5% for the student assistance, 5% for other education. The state programs, we're asking basically level funded with the exception of 2 of the programs, which is AKEY. 50% we're asking for, mainly for the mission to help address the Alabama teachers shortage. And also we're asking for the Historical Black College University, a 12% increase to support the professional development of their staff. On this particular slide, you will see that 7.39% looks like a decrease that we're asking for our planning and coordination. We actually asked for a 5% increase over FY 22 expenditures. It looks like a decrease because we had funds that were reverted in FY 21 and reappropriated in FY 22. So those additional funds are in that column, and therefore it looks as if we're asking for a decrease, but we're really asking for a 5% increase. Additionally, you'll see that same thing for the police and firefighters positions as well. And at the very bottom there, you'll see those 3 programs, new programs, the FAFSA completion year and the higher education micro credential that Dr. Purcell already spoke to you about, and the amount that we're asking for those 3 programs. On this slide here, you'll see the continuation of the appropriation units that we currently have. And you'll see that at the very bottom, the AT, Education Teacher Recruitment Partnership, and the Historical Black Colleges and Universities are the only 2 that we really are asking a bigger increase for under the state programs. On this next slide, this is based on major object codes, from personnel costs all the way to miscellaneous. So it's basically giving you what the amounts are that we're asking for increases for the different major object codes. And additionally, you will also see that that is our ETF reversion amount. This is the amount of $956,955 that we actually saved from FY 21. It reverted in FY 21, and it was reappropriated in FY 22. So this amount is in your budget expenditure column for 22, which makes it seem that we have more in that particular column that makes the negative amounts in your increase decrease column. We are asking that you will approve this budget, and if there are any questions, I'll be glad to entertain them.
Excellent. Any questions for Mrs. Harris?
I have a quick question, and it may be more for Dr. Purcell, I'm not sure. But in terms of the math and science, the AMSTEP program, it looked like we had used about 216,000, but actually had about 746 budgeted. So does that mean there's just not a lot of utilization of the program?
Yes, there's not as many people taking advantage of the math and science loan repayment programs. Probably 70 people at the most have gone through the program. It's been active for about 3 years. There is a need also to earmark money. So a student says, I'm going to work for 4 years, be a part of this program. So we do reserve some funds to pay off the loan amounts over that time period. So some of that money that you don't see actually spent is encumbered for future obligations that may occur if they continue to teach.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question, Veronica or Dr. Purcell, on personnel cost. It looks like the actual was 2.7, the budget is 3.5. Is that what's driving that? Is that due to open positions or?
Well, basically, we have in our personnel costs, we have about 3 employees that have been here for over 35 years that are planning on retiring. And they have the full max amount of annual leave and sick leave. So we have to budget that amount in there to pay them. One is actually coming out January 1. So that's why we have those additional funds in there.
It's great to be a state worker sometimes.
Any other questions? Excellent. Thank you for your report. Next, we will have Dr. Hood present the consolidated budget recommendation fiscal year 2022, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. It's my pleasure to be with you today to discuss the consolidated budget recommendation for FY 2022-23. This recommendation is in response to Section 1659B of the Alabama Code, which states the Commission shall present to each institution, the governor, and the legislature a unified Budget report for separate appropriations to each of the institutions of higher education. So in fulfillment of that requirement, I'd like to present the commission's consolidated budget for FY 2022-23. This year's recommendation is founded on several considerations. It's based on the cap estimate of the ETF appropriation from the Rolling Reserve Act. It's also based on increased revenue projections from state income tax, sales tax, various usage fees, and other costs. This recommendation also considers the historical split between higher education and other education sectors. Higher education typically receives about 1/4 to 25.5% of the ETF funds. The requested amounts from institutional budget proposals and the various needs mentioned in the budget hearing are also factored in the. On the next slide, I want to mention something a little bit about the budget hearings. These budget hearings played a vital role in informing this year's budget, and I'd like to take an opportunity to thank Commissioner Nelson and other members of the Financial Affairs Committee for their leadership in guiding this effort. As we discussed, we thought these hearings were very beneficial to the development of this year's recommendation. These budget hearings gave institutions the opportunity to provide additional context on their budget requests and highlight their areas of need. The hearings also gave the AIC Financial Affairs Committee the opportunity to get a better understanding of the financial challenges facing our colleges and universities. Some of these areas of need focused on personnel and salary issues, increased mandatory costs related to insurance and retirements, a growing need for capital assets, and then the need for technical upgrades in response to growing demands on the technical infrastructure, especially in light of COVID. So this next slide provides a highlight of some of our budget recommendation numbers. This year's recommendation is based on estimated ETF revenue of $8.9 billion for FY 2023. This reflects an increase of $1.23 billion over the FY 22 appropriation. And of this $1.23 billion, higher education generally gets, as I mentioned earlier, about 1/4 to 25% of these funds. So for higher education, we're estimating an increase of $313.9 million, or about a 16% increase over the prior year appropriation. Now, we understand the 16% increase is unsustainable moving forward, and feel it's fiscally irresponsible to treat this recommended increase as an ongoing fund moving forward. So today's recommendation separates the estimated increase into a one-time fund and an ongoing fund. So of the total $313.9 million, we're recommending $83.15 million, or about 27% of the total, as a one-time fund for capital assets. We feel this is a responsible approach for using these additional funds while recognizing the feedback we received from the budget hearings. So on the next slide, we can talk about the ongoing funds. These funds represent $217.35 million, or about 72.3% of the total recommendation. Now, these ongoing funds are divided into 4 categories that we'll talk about over the next few slides. But here you can see that personnel, salaries, and benefits account for slightly more than half of the recommended ongoing funds, 55%. This next slide talks about personnel and salaries. As I mentioned, 55.2% of the ongoing recommendation was allocated to address ongoing issues with personnel and salaries. And personnel and salary costs were recurring themes in the budget hearings as institutions struggle, as we talked about, to retain and attract qualified employees in a COVID environment. And so this pool of funds was developed by taking 7% of the prior year's appropriation, which slightly outpaces the consumer price index of 6.2%. But we've also noted here that this 55.2 distribution of funds closely aligned with the 54% of the total E&G funds typically spent on salaries and benefits. And so what this means, this basically suggests that the 55.2% is closely aligned with the current salary distribution of most colleges and universities. The next slide focuses on mandatory funds. And you can see that the mandatory funds are a small piece of the pie, about 5.4%. But these funds are based on reported figures from institutional needs assessment reporting. So these needs came directly from the institutions. And these funds will be used to give institutions support in addressing mandatory costs associated with retirement and health insurance. And on this slide, you can see in this table, the rate increases for just tier 1 and tier 2 employees related to the teacher retirement system. This doesn't include the increases for health insurance and other costs. So this pool of funds will be used to address those mandatory funds there. This next slide looks at across the board allocation. This pool of funds represents about 27.3% of the ongoing recommendation. We recommend that these funds be used to address rising utility costs, upgrade to technical infrastructure like network servers and other hardware upgrades, and again, in line with COVID. And this pool of funds was developed by taking 3% of the total prior year's appropriation. This 3% slightly outpaces the higher education price index, if you're familiar with the HEC index, 2.2%. Next, we allocated a pool of fund based on weighted credit hours. About 15.8% of the ongoing recommendation was allocated to recognize increases in student enrollment, changes in credit hour productivity, and the need to fund STEM and other high-cost programs at higher rates. This pool of funds was developed by taking 2% of the total prior year's appropriation and distributing those funds by weighted credit hours using ACE standard form. This next slide looks at the one-time recommendation that we talked about dealing with capital assets. These funds were determined after the other ongoing funds were allocated. About $83.15 million was left over. And so we allocated these funds for the one-time capital asset fund. This formula was based on headcount enrollment by residency, where a resident student gets counted at 100% and a non-resident student gets counted at 50%. So in that formula, it would take 2 non-resident students to equal 1 resident student. And this enrollment was based on a 3-year average to stabilize enrollment trends. This next slide looks at the $313.9 million by sector. And again, this includes both the one-time funds and the ongoing funds. And you can see here that about $225.2 million or 71.7% will go to the universities with this recommendation. 75.3 million will go to the community colleges. That represents about 24%. And the remaining 4.3% will go to the various state level programs. And this split between the universities and the community colleges matches the historical trend. So this is not different than what we've done in the past. This next slide provides an institutional overview of the consolidated budget recommendation. And you'll notice that some institutions receive larger increases than other institutions, and these differences are based on several factors. One factor was enrollment. We used a 3-year average, again, to stabilize some of the trend data. But during this time period, some institutions experienced consistent declines in enrollment. Other institutions experienced consistent increases in enrollment. So these changes in enrollment affected their recommended funds. Also, a proportion of the recommendation, again, was based on weighted credit hours using the ACE formula. So some institutions benefited in the recommendation from having additional STEM and other high cost programs. And then finally, this year's appropriation was recommendation was based on the prior year's appropriation. I mentioned that in several cases, some of the funds were based on the prior year's appropriation, and that affected some of the recommended funds for this year as well. So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation for this year's budget recommendation.
Excellent. Any questions for Dr. Hood? You can probably say that in your sleep. That's about the 4th time I've heard it, I think. And, but you did a very good job. Thank you. Next, we will have Commissioner Nelson present the Finance Committee recommendations.
Okay, before I do that, let me ask, is anybody here today that participated in our hearing back in November? Anyway, the way this works is the Finance Committee is charged with gathering the information and making the recommendation to the commission for approval. And that happened through the process of hearings. Dr. Hood, Ms. Harris, did their magic. We spoke several times during this process. And this morning at 9 o'clock, we met. The Finance Committee has approved what you have seen here today. And we hereby recommend present to this board the two proposals that presented by Dr. Hood.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Nelson. Any questions for Commissioner Nelson? Okay. Chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation for the executive budget request and the consolidated budget recommendation for fiscal year 2022 to 2023.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. The executive budget request and the consolidated budget recommendation fiscal year 2022-2023 are approved.
Chairman, if it's okay with you, I'd like to go on record as abstaining because of the relationship that I have with several organizations.
Excellent. Thank you. So noted. Our next decision, item C, will be presented by Mr. Julian Rogers. The report on facilities master plan and capital projects request for fiscal year 2022 through 2023 through fiscal year 2026 through 2027.
Good morning. Starting on page 27 of your packet, you will find the report on facilities master plan and capital request. The summary tables start on page 39. Section 16.5.15 of the Code of Alabama requires that each public college and university submit a 5-year facilities master plan to the commission. Each institution is also required to prioritize its capital request and to provide a needs assessment for requested projects. The report includes requests for immediate projects that will be needed in fiscal year 2023. Intermediate projects will be requested in the next fiscal year, and long-term projects that will fall into the following 3 years through fiscal year 2027. Projects are further categorized according to new construction or acquisition, renovation and remodeling, major capital equipment, and deferred maintenance. $2,008,986,606 was requested for immediate capital projects that are needed in the fiscal year 2023. As you can see in the first chart, 67% of funds requested for immediate capital projects are for new construction. Over 31% of the request is for maintenance, alteration, and repair of existing facilities. An additional 1.4% is requested for major capital equipment. The second chart shows that institutions project that over 40% of the funding of these projects will be provided by the Education Trust Fund. This equates to about $807 million. Over 13%, or $261 million, is requested from other state funds, such as the ETF Advancement and Technology Fund. For the 5-year period that this report covers, institutions project that funding totaling $5.7 billion will be needed for proposed projects. This includes $2.2 billion for deferred maintenance or remodeling of current structures. The second chart shows that institutions are projecting that 54%, or over $3 billion of this total, will be provided by the Education Trust Fund or other state-related funds. According to the fall 2021 facilities inventory report, almost 39% of the buildings being used by the public colleges and universities in Alabama were constructed between 1960 and 1989. The newest of these buildings have over 30 years of use, and the oldest are 60 years old, which is beyond the useful life of major building components. An additional 13.5% of the buildings in use for Alabama's higher education were constructed prior to 1960. The age of these buildings leads to requests of approximately $627 million to be used for renovations, maintenance, and repairs in fiscal year 2023. The state of Alabama does not provide regular funding for capital projects for education. This is true for K-12 as well as post-secondary education. General obligation bond issues are occasionally issued by the state, of which higher education usually receives a portion. The Education Trust Fund, ETF Advancement and Technology Fund also is now becoming a regular source of funds for capital projects for both sectors. However, because these two funding sources are not constant, the institutions must find funds from other sources to pay for capital projects. One of these sources is bonds. The institutions in Alabama are allowed to float their own bond issues. The institutions currently have approximately $4.1 billion in bonds outstanding, as shown in Table 7. As with all debt, these funds must be paid back, and the institutions paid approximately $364.6 million in debt service in the last fiscal year to pay these bonds off. Alabama A&M University received $85.5 million, and Alabama State University received $138.6 million in debt relief for federal funds. The source of revenue to pay these bonds is usually through tuition or fees that the students pay. Staff requests that the commission accept the report on the facilities master plan and capital projects.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Any questions? Mr. Rogers. Chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation. We have a motion and a second to approve. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye. Aye. And all opposed, like sign. The report is approved. Now we'll move into the academic programs, and I really appreciate all the representatives from the universities and the community colleges for being patient with us. December is usually our longest meeting with budgets, and we appreciate you being here. But the next decision item D will be presented by Dr. McGill. The first program will be from Alabama A&M University, Master of Science in Counseling.
All right, good morning, commissioners. I'm pleased to present this program on behalf of Alabama A&M University for a Master of Science in Counseling. This program is a revision of an existing program that's already being delivered at the institution. The revisions that are being made to the program constitute over 50% of the program's coursework, and therefore generated a proposal for a new program. What's spurring those revisions is change in requirements from the specialized accreditation entity for counseling, which is the Council for the Accreditation of Counseling and Related Educational Programs, known as CACREP. And they are requesting that the program increase the total number of hours to 60 credit hours. Alabama A&M is restructuring the program in that way. It will still lead to licensure and will have two specialties, one in rehabilitation counseling and one in school counseling. This will be the only counseling program in the greater Huntsville area, with the next closest one being at UNA. Staff is recommending approval for this proposal.
Excellent. Any questions for Dr. McGill? The chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye. Aye. And all opposed, like sign. The program is approved. The second program from Alabama A&M University is the Doctor of Philosophy of Curriculum and Instruction.
Great, thank you, Chairman. This proposal for a PhD in curriculum and instruction does grow out of an existing program that Alabama A&M currently offers, and it's in Teach Out, which is a PhD in reading and literacy. So that was a very specific and narrow program. And as that program is closing out, the university wanted to broaden its doctoral offerings in education to include one specialization that continues the reading and literacy studies, especially in light of the State Literacy Act, but then adds 3 additional concentrations for doctoral students, one in science education, one in early childhood and elementary education, and one in education administration. Each of the concentrations corresponds to an existing master's program that Alabama A&M offers. Similarly to the previous program, this would be the only doctoral program in the Huntsville area that focuses on education, and is an important avenue for professionals, educators of color to increase their training. Program projects a new enrollment of 3.8 students per year and is being delivered largely online to serve more part-time working professionals. Staff is recommending approval.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. McGill? Chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye. Aye. And all opposed, like sign. The program is approved. The next program will be from Auburn University, Doctor of Physical Therapy and Physical Therapy.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chairman. So this proposal for a DPT in physical therapy from Auburn University would make it the 4th public institution to offer a Doctor of Physical Therapy. Currently, there are programs at Alabama State University, University of Alabama at Birmingham, and the University of South Alabama. There are 2 additional programs at private institutions, Samford University and Faulkner just started one this year. I mentioned that because we did receive strong concerns, expression of concerns from several of the public institution peers about this program. Their concerns largely brought our attention to the state of the profession of physical therapy and also to concerns around shared resources. And I wanted to bring those up and I'll explain them, but also note that Auburn's representatives from the Department of Kinesiology are here to answer any additional questions you may have. So regarding the profession, physical therapy, based on communications that the Professional Association has given, seems to have a very high student demand. So there are lots of students coming out of undergraduates who want to pursue a DPT and become physical therapists. And there is also an industry need for increased number of physical therapists, but not to the same extent that there is student demand. And because of that mismatch between how much students are demanding and how much the industry needs, which is still a demand, the specialized accreditor, which is called CAPTE, the Commission on Accreditation in Physical Therapy, has recommended limiting the number of new programs. And they've opened up only a few slots every year for new programs. Auburn has proposed this program in order to get a slot to begin offering the program in 2025. So that's not something we typically see, that kind of need for extensive startup of the program, but that is because of the limitations that the accrediting entity has put on. And reviewing this, AIC staff felt that those breaks that the accreditor puts on the number of programs were sufficient to account for that difference between industry need and student demand. So it had been recommended to us that there are always going to be institutions who are proposing those new DPT programs. And does Alabama want one in Alabama, or would it go somewhere else? And there is a need, like I said, for additional practitioners of physical therapy, particularly in the region of the state where Auburn is located. There are currently no programs that are over in that part of the state, and as we know, Auburn, having a constitutional mission throughout the state, could draw from anywhere in the state. But they're also on the border with Georgia and have a number of strong relationships across the border, and in particular with the U.S. Army, and they're based down in Columbus. They've got an existing extensive research program through their School of Kinesiology called the Warrior Research Project. And they plan to leverage that relationship to enhance the clinical experiences for this proposed DPT. So other institutions have said, oh, well, because there are a limited number of clinical sites, what will we do if we have another program? And Auburn, we asked them for additional information, and they said, no, we're bringing new clinical sites to the state because we're working with the military and also in the eastern part of the state and with our own athletics programs. And by leveraging those new clinical sites, we'll actually be able to open up new partnerships and opportunities that could benefit the rest of the state, which we found very, very compelling. Programs of physical therapy are expensive programs to run, so you'll see in the business plan that Auburn University is committing to $4.75 million to start up this program. Much of it's going to new faculty, 8 to 10 new faculty, equipment, facilities renovations, and staff. And the university feels that this is an important part of mission enhancement, and so they're willing to invest those funds with the idea that the program will enroll 40 students per year and will break even within the first couple of years of enrolling students. So with all of this additional information and research and responses from Auburn School of Kinesiology, staff is recommending approval for the program.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. McGill or the representatives from Auburn University?
Yes. I would like to know about this accreditation organization that limits, caps the number. I made notes. I was going through this home about who establishes that cap. You answered that. Then if you look at the estimated head counts, do they change that from time to time? Like if we get started and they limit it to 40, do they change it year to year, the number of people you can accept? Or is that I guess what I'm asking is that, are those firm numbers? We feel very confident about head count, I guess. Is what it is.
Right. So what we learned, and I'll ask Auburn's faculty to respond to this as well, is that there are many sufficient number of applicants for the existing DPT programs. That gets to that student demand. And those students are currently being turned away because there are not spots for them in the existing programs, or they're choosing to go out of state, perhaps. So I think the expectation that they will be able to fill the student enrollment that they project is pretty solid. It may waver, with attrition or other natural factors. But your question also seems to suggest that is there.
Yeah, the demand side of it, I don't question. What I'm questioning is this accreditation organization. Is it likely or possible or probable that they can come in and change it? So this change.
I wouldn't think so. All of the factors are all based on the number of students that we're proposing. So we feel like that we're going to have the right number of faculty and to serve the number of students coming in, we would see the accrediting agency.
Well, I will also say that so the accrediting agency set caps on new programs. And what they, as far as I understand, did not do was go and retroactively apply those caps to.
All right, that's the question. Do they do that? Okay.
So do you all, is that correct? Okay. So if Auburn gets their slot for 2025 and is approved at 40 students as its cap, then there's no reason to believe the accreditor would revise that down.
That's exactly what I was trying to get to.
Dr. McGill, I have a question. So on the peer review, it sounds, I see that there was concern expressed about the lack of clinical science. It seems like that's been addressed. What is the concern about the state of the profession itself? Why is that even in here? What is the concern?
This was to get to that mismatch between the very, very high student demand and the high industry demand, but not as high as the student. So in the documentation we reviewed on the state of the profession, there was concern that some students are pursuing DPTs without the ability to complete their clinical training, or potentially without the ability to find a job after, and that they were taking on loans that might leave them in debt. So that largely applied to the nation as a whole, and we find that the industry need in Alabama is sufficiently high that we don't believe that's going to be the case for graduates in our state.
Any other questions? We certainly don't want kids going out of study. So that's great. Chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye. Aye. And all opposed, like sign. The program is approved. Thank y'all for being here. Appreciate it. The next program will be from Athens State University, Bachelor of Science in Aerospace Systems Management.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. The Bachelor of Science in Aerospace Systems Management would be offered through Athens State College of Business. This would extend existing coursework they offer for a minor in aviation management, which they've been offering for 10 years. And they also have a related management of technology major. This would obviously be more specifically focused on aerospace. And the proposal includes 2 specializations, which correspond to the 2 relationships the institution has got with community colleges. One with Wallace State and Hansel for the aviation track. Wallace State currently has an FAA approved flight training, and so by partnering with this track, it would allow those future pilots to reduce their number of training hours because of the additional training they received. The second relationship with Calhoun Community College focuses on space systems. And the idea is that both of these programs will allow students to move seamlessly and get their bachelor's degree and help fulfill the high industry need for professionals in aerospace in the greater Huntsville area. Staff is recommending approval for this program.
Excellent. Any questions for Dr. McGill? Chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye. Aye. And all opposed, like sign. The program is approved. The second program from Athens State University, Master of Science in Computer Science.
Great, thank you, Chairman. So you'll see that this one and the next one, Master of Science in Computer Science, and the next is Master of Science in Cybersecurity, are both intended to address a strong industry need in computing, programming, and cyber up in that Huntsville area. Athens State currently offers bachelor's level programs in computer science and information technology that are specially accredited by the Accreditation Board of Engineering and Technology. That board doesn't accredit master's level programs, but it does provide testimony to the kinds of faculty that are required to teach those programs. Athens State is projecting a new enrollment of 9.5 students a year, most of whom would be part-time students. And this is what Athens is calling a low residency program, meaning it's delivered in a majority hybrid format, but students do come in for face-to-face meetings on weekends or after or in non-traditional school times. So again, that's to accommodate the working professionals. They are proposing one new faculty member to be shared with their bachelor's program. And there are comparable degrees at Alabama A&M and University of Alabama Huntsville. But again, the industry need in that area seems so high, and it's part of the Alabama State strategic advantage. So staff is recommending approval.
Any questions for Dr. McGill? Chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation. We have a motion and a second to approve. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye. Aye. And all opposed, like sign. The program is approved. The third program from Athens State University, Master of Science in Cybersecurity. I know you touched on that. Do you want to
I'll give a
elaborate?
brief treatment. So this one is a joint venture between the College of Arts and Sciences, which houses the Math and Computer Science Department, and then also the College of Business, which houses Athens State's Information Assurance Department. So students in this program will receive both their kind of technical training and also a business management training. And Athens State already has baccalaureate programs in cybersecurity and information assurance. The proposal does come with letters of approval from businesses and industries in the area, and staff is recommending approval for this program as well.
Excellent. Any questions for Dr. McGill? Chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye. Aye. And all opposed, like sign. The program is approved. The next program will be from Troy University, Bachelor of Science in Graphic Design.
Thank you. And this program is a substantive modification, meaning that it is currently, they're requesting to change the CIP code for the program. So right now, this program is sharing that classification and instructional program code with the BA, BFA, and Fine Arts. So that code doesn't really describe the content of the program being very specifically focused on graphic design. And Troy has requested a modification to create a new entry for this program. The program has been in existence and is already accredited through the National Association of Schools of Art and Design. Troy has provided evidence of new enrollments, around 35 students a year, and graduates of 25 or so students per year. Staff is recommending approval of the program as modified.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. McGill?
Mr. Chairman, Dr. McGill, just kind of a follow-on question. How do these accreditations get approved or authorized? Who's behind that? Are there more than one accrediting bodies that could be chosen?
Generally, there is one specialized accreditor for a specific field. Sometimes, like for colleges of business, there could be two, and the institution would have a choice. But generally, it's the institution's choice whether to pursue that specialized accreditation, which gives them, shows a level of quality and investment in the program to attract better faculty and better students to the program. So those specialized accreditations really are a testament to the level of performance and quality of the program.
Any other questions? Chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation. We have a motion and a second to approve. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye. Aye. And all opposed, like sign. The program substantive modification is approved. The next program will be from the University of North Alabama, Associate of Science in Culinary Arts.
Great. And so I'll preface this by saying there are three proposals, this and the next two, from the University of North Alabama for Associate of Science degrees, which is currently outside of the mission of the University of North Alabama. They are a baccalaureate institution and offer master's degrees and select doctoral degrees. So they're seeking from the regional accreditor, the Southern Commission on Schools and Colleges, Commission of Colleges, to extend their accreditation level to include associate degrees. And they are proposing 3 so that they can go through that process. So these 3 are structured as Associate of Science programs, which I should distinguish between Associate of Science, which is intended or structured to include general education and be able to transfer to baccalaureate program, versus Associate of Applied Science, which are structured with a fewer number of general education and a higher number of technical coursework, with the focus that the students will go directly into that technical field and may not pursue baccalaureate. So with that being said, the University of North Alabama, we're looking at the Associate of Science in Culinary Arts. This grows out of an investment that is happening in Lauderdale County for the Agricultural Events Center, which is going to have one of the largest commercial kitchens in the state. There are currently no associate level programs in that area of North Alabama, but the University of North Alabama does have a baccalaureate program in culinary arts. And so this is designed to articulate to the baccalaureate program they offer. The program does have an interesting structure that the other 2 programs also share, where it includes component credentials. So I mentioned the general ed component that supports the transfer, that's 31 credits. Then there is a program core for this specific field. And then there are component micro credentials. And a student would choose 2 of those micro credentials out of the 3 that are offered. So the first being dining and restaurant supervision, the second kitchen supervision, and the third banquet and event supervision. So students will complete 2 out of 3 and earn their associate degree with the choice of being able to continue and earn the 3rd micro credential or go on to the bachelor's degree, or of course go into the industry. There are investments in staff and faculty, and those are going to be shared with the proposed program in hospitality management. The program itself would be 62 to 65 credits, which is on par with what you would expect for an associate degree, and staff is recommending approval for this program.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. McGill? Chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The program is approved. The second program for the University of North Alabama, Associate of Science in Mechatronics. Did I say that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, great.
I know, it's such a new and interesting field, but we're all learning about it. So similar to what I just described about the culinary arts, this program is structured to have 31 hours of general education core that can support transfer to a baccalaureate program, along with a program core, and then component credentials where students would complete 2 out of 3 specialty credentials. So for this program in mechatronics, which is related to advanced manufacturing, the students have a choice of control systems, mechanical systems, and systems operations. This prepares students for employment as engineering technologists, mechatronics technologists, or electronic assemblers. And that advanced manufacturing being among the high demand sort of competitive fields in Alabama, we felt that there was sufficient demand throughout the state to justify an additional program. This program will require startup for equipment, but UNA has received some grant funds that would offset that, and it is projected to be self-sufficient by year 3. The program also, the proposal included letters of support from 6 industry organizations attesting to the need for the program, and staff is recommending approval.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. McGill? Chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, like sign. The program is approved. The third program from the University of North Alabama, Associate of Science in Hospitality and Events Management.
Okay. So this one is, would share some resources with the Associate of Science in Culinary Arts, including being partially supported by the Lauderdale County Agricultural and Events Center. It's structured similarly with general ed, program core, and then component credentials, this time in lodging and tourism management, event and food service management, and hospitality management. The University of North Alabama does offer an existing baccalaureate degree in hospitality and events management, and students would be able to articulate the credits from this associate degree to continue their studies. Staff is recommending approval for this program as well.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. McGill? Chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation. We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, like sign. The program is approved. The next program will be from the University of South Alabama, Master of Science in Biomedical Sciences.
And before we go there, I do want to say something about the UNA's effort here. The micro-credential component, they did a great job of helping us understand how financial aid works with that. And I think that'll be something that all of us within the higher ed field, especially the universities, can benefit from, so they know how that works. Their micro-credential design is excellent, and their partnership with us to figure out how all this works in this type of setting was impressive, and I appreciate their efforts.
Great, thank you for saying that.
Okay, thank you. For the University of South Alabama Master of Science in Biomedical Sciences, this is a one-year master's program. The university is projecting a new enrollment of at least 8 students per year. And this is related to the doctoral programs in health sciences that USA currently has, meaning that some students need additional preparation before they're accepted to those doctoral programs. And this is a one-year program that will help make them better candidates. Some students may choose not to pursue doctoral programs, and this will also prepare them for employment in biosciences. There is some investment in faculty, which USA would share with the Bachelor of Science in Biomedical Sciences, and staff is recommending approval for this program.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. McGill? Chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, like sign. The program is approved. The next program will be from the University of West Alabama, Associate of Science in Forestry Technology.
All right, so this is an Associate of Science in Forestry Technology. It's structured similarly to the Associate Science that we just saw from UNA, insofar as it has a strong number of general education credits that can then be transferred to the bachelor's degree. And UWA is considering moving toward that micro-credential model we heard about, so stay tuned for that. But this program is arising out of a gift that the university received of undeveloped lands in Bibb County that they've called the Cahaba Biodiversity Center. And this program would allow students to reside in dorms that are already on the land and be able to avail themselves of forestry resources and train for forestry technician. And as you can see from the staff recommendation, forestry is a key component of Alabama's high demand industry sectors. And so this would supply much needed forestry technicians to that sector. The closest program is at LBW in Andalusia. And University of West Alabama is is interested in seeking partnerships with our land grant institutions to help their students move toward baccalaureate degrees in the field. Staff is recommending approval for this program.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. McGill? Chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. The program is approved. Dr. McGill, thank you. The next program will be from Bevel State Community College, presented by Mrs. White. It is the Associate of Applied Science and Short-Term Certificate in Medical Assistant Technology.
Thank you, Commissioner Button. When you see me, it's almost over, so. You can all smile on the last one. So Bevel State Community College is projecting annual average enrollment of around 20 for this proposed program. This program will prepare students for entry-level work in local healthcare settings as either medical assistants or phlebotomists, and both of those are on the state-wide in-demand occupations list. This program will share several courses with the college's existing nursing program, and this will also provide an alternative and an easy transition for students who don't get accepted to the nursing program. The college surveyed a number of local healthcare providers who expressed need for this program and their support and in being willing to be clinical partners for this program. It will initially be offered only through dual enrollment coursework at the Walker County Center of Technology, which is a high school career tech center. And Bevel has also consulted with other colleges about collaborating on course materials and clinical workspace. They are projecting $440,000 in new funds over the first 7 years. The majority of that will be used for additional adjunct professors and to pay a portion of the pay for existing full-time faculty. And they're anticipating the program will generate around $2.5 million through tuition. The staff is recommending approval of this program.
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. White? Chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye. All opposed, like sign. The program is approved. The next program will be from Coastal Alabama Community College, Associate of Applied Science in Medical Assistant Technology.
Okay, this program is similar to the one I just described. Coastal is also projecting annual average enrollment of around 20 students. Again, this program will prepare students to become medical assistants and phlebotomists. Several hospitals in Coastal's area approached the school. They requested that the school offer this program, and the proposal did contain 11 letters of support from local healthcare facilities and professionals. The closest program to Coastal's service area is offered by Trenholm State here in Montgomery, so they're not going to be touching on other toes there. They're projecting $890,000 in new funds over the first 7 years. The majority of that will be used to hire a full-time director / faculty member and a full-time site coordinator / faculty member. They are anticipating the program will generate around $1.4 million through tuition. And staff is recommending approval of this program.
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. White? Chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye. All opposed, like sign. The program is approved. The second program from Coastal Alabama Community College is Associate of Applied Science and Medical Laboratory Technology.
Okay, Coastal is also projecting average enrollment of around 20 for this program. It will prepare students for employment as medical and clinical laboratory technicians and technologists, which are also included on the statewide in-demand occupations list. Again, several hospitals in Coastal's area have requested that the school offer this program to meet the high demand in the region. And again, their proposal contains numerous letters of support. They will seek accreditation for this program through the National Accrediting Agency for Clinical Laboratory Sciences, and this will allow graduates to sit for the certification exam through ASCP or the American Society for Clinical Pathology. Belleville is projecting just over 1 million in new funds over the first 7 years of this program, and again, that is to hire for this program a full-time director / faculty member and a site coordinator / faculty member. They are anticipating the program will generate around 1.3 million through tuition. Staff is recommending approval of this program.
Any questions for Ms. White? I think you said Bevel, but we're talking about Coastal.
Oh, did I say Belleville? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Okay. Just making sure. Just making sure.
I'm just getting confused.
That's okay.
Yes.
Any-
Coastal.
Any questions? Okay, Chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye. And all opposed, like sign. Program is approved. The next program will be from Lawson State Community College, Associate of Applied Science and Dental Assistant.
Okay, Lawson State is projecting an annual average enrollment of around 18 for this proposed program. This program will help meet industry demand for dental assistants, which are also included on the statewide in-demand occupations list. Lawson currently holds accreditation from CODA, or that stands for the Commission on Dental Accreditation, for their existing associate in occupational technology degree in dental assisting, which requires 76 hours to complete. The school also has a certificate in dental assisting, which requires 49 hours to complete. So this additional program will only require 62 hours, which will offer another alternative for students that are looking to complete a degree, but in a shorter amount of time. They will use available resources that they already have in place for the certificate and the existing AOT degree. So this program will not require any new funds to implement over the first 7 years. And they anticipate the program will generate $970,000 through tuition. The staff is recommending approval of this program.
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. White? Chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like. Program is approved. The next program will be from Southern Union State Community College, Associate of Applied Science and Wellness and Therapeutic Massage. Sounds interesting.
Everybody needs a massage therapist. Southern Union is projecting annual average new enrollment of around 12 students for this proposed program. This program will build from the institution's established certificate options in therapeutic massage and wellness and personal trainer, and it will prepare graduates for employment as massage therapists, which again are also on the statewide in-demand occupations list. This proposal included several letters of support from local business owners and partners, many of which who have agreed to pay for the cost of students' licensure exams through employment agreements with them. So that's a good deal for the students. There are several related short-term certificates currently offered in Alabama, but no associate level programs with a wellness and therapeutic massage focus. And this pathway, this program will create a pathway for further education in exercise science, physical science, and other kinesiology fields at Auburn University, if students want to continue on to the bachelor's level, or the physical therapy assistant program at Southern Union. The program will be designed to prepare students to pass the National Certification Board for Therapeutic Massage and Bodywork Certification Exam and become licensed to practice in the state of Alabama. Students will also have the opportunity in this program to become CPR, first aid, and personal trainer certified. Southern Union will use existing faculty facilities and equipment. The program will not require any additional funds over the first 7 years. They anticipate it will generate around $150,000 through tuition. Staff is recommending approval of this program.
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. White? Chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye. All opposed, like sign. Program is approved. On to information items. Thank you, Ms. White. Thanks for your time and your hard work. Items 1 through 8 are normally accepted or not accepted by the commission as a whole. Chair entertains motion to approve the items collectively. I thank you for the motion in a second. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye. All opposed, like sign. The information items are accepted. So just some parting comments. Thank you for everyone that has joined. Commissioners, thank y'all for coming. Feels so good to be back here in person, I've got to tell you. And Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everybody, and I pray that everybody has safe travels. Thank you. All right.